than a Chinese balloon while you've been in the sky, yes?
Certainly. We've seen things that we haven't been able to explain as simply as...
I want to be clear. We don't have any evidence that there has been a sudden increase in the number of objects in the sky. I want to be clear. We don't have any evidence that there has been a sudden increase in the number of objects in the sky. I want to be clear. We don't have any evidence that there has been a sudden increase in the number of objects in the sky. We're now just...
Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another video. So before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking. All right. So since the recent issue with the balloon that the United States has been blaming on China, there's been a reopening of interest into an ongoing problem that we've had here in the United States. And what that problem is the issue of unidentified flying objects. All right. What we have here today is an article from Politico. And what it says is we have a real UFO problems, and it's not balloons. America's fixation on the recent objects floating over the country overlooks a more serious problem with advanced technology aircraft that we can't quite explain. On a clear sunny day in April of 2014, two FA-18s took off for an air combat training mission off the coast of Virginia. The jets, part of my Navy fighter squadron, climbed to an altitude of 12,000 and steered towards warning area W72 in an exclusive block of airspace 10 miles east of Virginia Beach. All traffic into the training area goes through a single GPS point at a set altitude, almost like a doorway into a massive room where military jets can operate without running into other aircraft. Just at the moment the two jets crossed the threshold, one of the pilots saw a dark gray cube inside of a clear sphere, motionless against the wind, fixed directly at the entry point. The jets, only 100 feet apart, zipped past the object on either side. The pilots had come so dangerously close to something they couldn't identify that they terminated the training mission immediately and returned to base. All right. So now here's my question for you guys. What do you think that this sphere inside of this cube was that these pilots happened to see? I almost hit one of those damn things. The flight leader, still shaken by the incident, told us shortly after the pilot's ready return. We all knew exactly what he meant. Those damn things had been plaguing us for the previous 8 months. I joined the U.S. Navy in 2009, and I underwent years of rigorous training as a pilot. Specifically, we are trained to be expert observers in identifying aircraft with our sensors and our own eyes. It's our job to know what's in our operating area. That's why in 2014, after upgrades were made to our radar system, our squadron made a startling discovery. There were unknown objects in our airspace. Okay, so now my question for everybody is, what do you all think that these unknown objects that are being picked up in the airspace actually are? Okay, so now they have a video here, and we're gonna check this video out and see exactly what they're talking about on here, and maybe this will give us a little bit of insight, because it's Joe Biden saying it, and you know, if Joe Biden is saying something, well, he's the fearless leader. We gotta take it serious.
Yet know exactly what these three objects were. But nothing right now suggests they were related to China's spy balloon program, or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country. These three objects were most likely balloons tied to private companies, recreation or research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research. I want to be clear. We don't have any evidence that there has been a sudden increase in the number of objects in the sky. We're now just seeing more of them, partially because the steps we've taken to increase our radars. I've directed my team to come back to me with sharper rules for how we will deal with these unidentified objects moving forward, distinguishing between those that are likely to pose safety and security risks that necessitate action and those that do not. But make no mistake, if any object presents a threat to the safety and security of the American people, I will take it down. One of these high-altitude surveillance balloons entered our airspace over the continental United States earlier in the month. I gave the order to shoot it down as soon as it would be safe to do so. The military advised against shooting it down over land because of the sheer size of it. It was the size of multiple school buses and posed a risk to people on the ground. We'll also continue to engage with China, as we have throughout the past 2 weeks. As I've said since the beginning of my administration, we seek competition, not conflict with China. I expect to be speaking with President Xi, and I hope we're going to get to the bottom of this, but I make no apologies for taking down that balloon. Thank you very much.
So now here it says, initially, the objects were showing up on our newly upgraded radars, and we assumed they were quote-unquote ghosts in the machine or software glitches. But when we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple surveillance systems, including infrared sensors that detected heat signatures, then came the hair-raising near misses that required us to take evasive action. There were no mere balloons. The unidentified aerial phenomenon accelerated at speeds of up to Mach 1, the speed of sound. They could hold their position, appearing motionless, despite Category 4 hurricane force winds of 120 knots. They did not have any visible means of lift, control surfaces, or propulsion. In other words, nothing that resembled normal aircraft with wings, flaps, or engines. And they outlasted our fighter jets, operating continuously throughout the day. I am a formerly trained engineer, but the technology they demonstrated defied my understanding. After that near miss, we had no choice but to submit a safety report, hoping that something could be done before it was too late. But there were no official acknowledgments of what we experienced and no further mechanism to report the sightings, even as other aircrew flying along the east quietly began sharing similar experiences. Our only option was to cancel or move our training as the UAP continued to maneuver in our vicinity unchecked. Nearly a decade later, we still don't know what they were. When I retired from the Navy in 2019, I was the first active duty pilot to come forward and publicly testify to Congress. In the years since, there has been some notable coverage of the encounters, and Congress has taken some action to force the military and intelligence agencies to do much more and to get to the bottom of these mysteries. But there has not been anything near the level of public and official attention that has been paid to the recent shoot-downs of Chinese spy balloons and 3 other unknown objects that were likely research balloons. And that's the problem. Advanced objects demonstrating cutting-edge technology that we cannot explain are routinely flying over our military bases or entering restricted airspace. UAP events continue to occur in restricted or sensitive airspace, highlighting possible concerns for safety of flight or adversary collection activity. The Director of National Intelligence reported last month, citing 247 new reports over the last 17 months. Some UAP appear to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. The Navy has also officially acknowledged 11 near misses, with UAP that required evasive action and triggered mandatory safety reports between 2004 and 2021. Advanced UAP also pose a growing safety hazard to commercial airliners. Last May, the Federal Aviation Administration issued an alert after passenger aircraft flying over West Virginia experienced a rare failure of two major systems while passing underneath what appeared to be a UAP. One thing we do know is these craft aren't part of some classified U.S. project. We were quite confident that that was not the explanation. Scott Bray, the deputy director of the Office of Naval Intelligence, testified before Congress last year. Florida Senator Marco Rubio confirmed in a recent interview that whatever the origin of these objects is, it is not the United States military. We have things flying over our military bases and places where we're conducting military exercises, and we don't know what is and what isn't ours, says Rubio, who is the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee. President Joe Biden rightly points out the real national security and aviation safety risks from foreign intelligence collection to hazard to civilian air traffic that arise from low-tech balloon-like entities. I applaud his new order to create an interagency UAP task force and a government-wide effort to address unidentified objects, and his proposal to make sure all aerial craft are registered and identifiable according to a global standard is good common sense. However, what the president did not address during his press conference February 16th were the UAP that exhibited advanced performance capabilities. Where is the transparency and urgency from the administration and Congress to investigate highly advanced objects in restricted airspace that our military cannot explain? How will this new task force be more effective than existing efforts if we are not being clear and direct about the scope and nature of advanced UAP? The American public must demand accountability. We need to understand what is in our skies, period. In the coming days, I will launch Americans for Safe Aerospace, a new advocacy organization for aerospace safety and national security. ASA will support pilots and other aerospace professionals who are reporting UAP. Our goal is to demand more disclosure from our public officials about this significant safety and national security problem. We will provide credible voices, public education, grassroots activism, and lobbying on Capitol Hill to get answers about UAP. President Biden needs to address this issue as transparently as possible. The White House should not conflate the low-tech objects that were recently shot down with unexplained high-tech advanced objects witnessed by pilots. And I think that this is a very important part of this article, all right? Because what this article wants to make very clear is that the objects of concern being discussed in this article are not balloons. These are high-tech flying objects that are seen by the United States military that do not have visible apparatus that should make it obvious that they're able to take flight. Our government needs to admit that it is possible another country has developed game-changing technology. We need to urgently address this threat by bringing together the best minds in our military, intelligence, science, and tech sectors. If advanced UAP are not foreign drones, then we absolutely need a robust scientific inquiry into this mystery. Obfuscation and denial are a recipe for more conspiracy theories and greater distrust that stem our search for the truth. We need a coordinated, data-driven response that unites the public and private sectors. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, the U.S. Space Force, and a host of other military and civilian agencies need to be marshaled in support of a much more aggressive and vigilant effort, along with our scientific community and private industry. Right now, the pieces of the UAP puzzle are scattered across silos in the military, government, and the private sector. We need to integrate and analyze these massive data sets with new methods like artificial intelligence. We also need to make this data available to the best scientists outside of the government. We have strong supporters of more data sharing. Senator Marco Rubio has suggested that the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which was set up by Congress last year, should share its data on unidentified flying objects with academic institutions and civilian scientific organizations. The American Institute of Aeronautics and the Galileo Project at Harvard, tech startups like Enigma Lab, and traditional defense contractors could all play a role. Unfortunately, all UAP reports and videos are classified, meaning active duty pilots cannot come forward publicly and FOIA requests are denied. These are two major steps backwards for transparency, but they can be mitigated with data sharing. I am impressed by the recent whistleblower protections enacted last year to encourage more pilots and others to come forward. I support the fresh push by Rubio and Senator Kristen Gillibrand for full funding of AARO. Given the stakes, Congress also needs to fund grants for more scientific inquiry of UAP. Above all, we need to listen to pilots. Military and civilian pilots provide critical first-hand insights into advanced UAP. Right now, the stigma attached to reporting UAP is still too strong. Since I came forward about UAP in 2019, only one other pilot from my squadron has gone public. Commercial pilots also face significant risks to their career for doing so. New rules are needed to require civilian pilots to report UAP, protect the pilots from retribution, and a process must be established for investigating their reports. Derision or denial over the unknown is unacceptable. This is a time for curiosity. If the phenomena I witnessed with my own eyes turns out to be foreign drones, they pose an urgent threat to the national security and airspace safety. If they are something else, it must be a scientific priority to find out. Okay, so again, make sure that you guys understand that when it comes to what this article is talking about, they are not talking about the Chinese weather balloons or Chinese spy balloons. They are talking about specific objects that have been seen by pilots that have advanced flight capabilities that fly near military bases that no one has been able to explain what they are. Now, the individual who wrote that article came onto CNN for an exclusive interview, and we're going to check out that interview right now.
That Chinese balloon that floated across the continental U.S. got a lot of attention, and somehow it eclipsed other, weirder, unidentified flying objects.
Echo 613, Roger, over. Oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, they're troubleshooting as soon as Did you talk moving target?
Now, what I noticed about this off the rip is that they do not sound scared of what's going on at all. Sounds like they're having a great time. They're, flying, and they don't really sound frantic or concerned. If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If you disagree, give me a thumbs down.
No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow. Let's try.
Former Navy fighter pilot Brian Graves has a new article in Politico titled, "We Have a Real UFO Problem, and It's Not Balloons." He joins me now. Ryan, I'm with you.
And it's interesting also how the news lady seems to be laughing as well. If you guys notice that, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down.
I mean, you've seen weirder things than a Chinese balloon while you've been in the sky, yes?
Certainly. We've seen things that we haven't been able to explain as simply a balloon. And as we've been talking about the various objects that have been shot down over the U.S., there's been a pretty clear bifurcation between what we've been calling a Chinese balloon and what these other three objects are. And while we don't know what they are, the fact of the matter is we should know what's above our head at any given time, whether it's a national security issue or whether it's a scientific question. We need to figure out what's above our heads.
That video that we just showed, was that from your squad?
Yes, that was in 2015 while we were aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida. We were doing training missions, preparing for our combat deployment. We recorded that object as well as other objects that were operating in our vicinity on a regular basis. And we simply didn't know what they were, but we did know that they were a safety hazard for our air crew and for our training missions. And we've been looking for the right way to report and deal with those issues ever since. With the Americans for Safe Aerospace, we're going to be pushing legislative action to ensure that the proper policies are in place so that pilots and aviators, both in the military and in the commercial markets, feel comfortable reporting these things. Whether, again, it's a national security issue, we need to pay attention to make sure there's not security gaps, or whether there is something unknown, we need to inquire on that.
But Ryan, what was that thing?
That's what we're still trying to figure out. So what we know is that it wasn't one of our aircraft that we were operating within the vicinity of. We're fairly certain that it's not a foreign adversary at this point, but it still remains in the unknown bucket. And the primary issue here is that there are enough things that are in that bucket of unknown that the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office within the DoD and various senators and congressmen and women are looking into this matter from the angle of national security in a way we haven't had before. With the recent shootdowns, we can see just how serious of an issue it is. Even if they are just balloons can still be a national security issue when they're overhead our national security facilities and airspace.
But these things that you've seen, and in fact, I should let everybody know, you saw them a lot. This wasn't just a one-off once in 2015. You saw UFOs often. And these things, correct me if I'm wrong, they do things. They have sort of technology that you all couldn't identify.
It's not that we were just seeing them out there and somewhat identifying something in the distance. We're using a multitude of sensors on our aircraft and also distributed across multiple aircraft and different platforms that are detecting these objects within a sensor network. And so when we then correlate those radar tracks with our infrared camera systems and eventually moving closer to detect them with our eyeballs, we have high confidence in those track files and what we're experiencing. And what we're experiencing are things that we're really not sure what they are at the end of the day. They're performing a number of behaviors that we don't recognize, such as the ability to stay stationary in very high winds with no lifting platforms, no surfaces, but also to maintain speeds of 0.6 to 0.8 Mach, which is upwards of 350 knots. And they can do that for many hours on end. We don't have the ability to do that in our aircraft. We simply don't know who's operating these or what their intent are.
I think we have another clip of one from your squadron of them seeing it, as you said, in high wind and operating differently.
It's rotating. Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
And so when you say that you want to get to a point where people feel comfortable reporting them, do people not feel comfortable reporting these sightings?
They still don't. And I'll only speak within the aviation community, but it's a big risk to go out publicly on this topic. At the end of the day, if you're going to highlight yourself, at least in the military aviation communities, for something like this, there's very little upside for you. We're very busy aviators in the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and the military in general are very busy just doing their regular job, and they're not equipped to go out and do research on these mysterious objects. On the commercial sector, people work for a very long time in a single career at a single company, and they're a single signature away on a medical evaluation to say they're unfit for flying and to lose that career. So there's really just very little motivation to speak publicly about this, especially when it's been communicated by their employers and historically that this is a somewhat off limits topic.
Mm-hmm. And last, Ryan, do you have a theory on what these are?
Well, I have a theory of what they're not. And I do have a method, I think, of trying to figure out what these are. We know that we can detect these objects. We are starting to recognize as a government and as a society that we have an obligation to figure out what these are to ensure safe flying. So I think we can figure it out. I think that is an answerable question, although not quite yet.
Ryan Graves, thanks for sharing all this with us. It's really fascinating. And obviously, we do need to get some answers about all of this that the balloon has exposed. Thanks so much for being here.
So there's that. So I find it interesting. The newswoman seems very casual about this. All of the videos that were shown shows the pilots with a casual attitude. They seem somewhat excited, but they're laughing. It doesn't seem like they're really terrified or worried about anything. But the fact that these things continue to show up and that we're hearing about this kind of phenomenon every other week now is something to take note of. So what I'm curious about is, what do you all think this is? What do you all think the government's motive is for sharing these kind of stories all of a sudden now, when people have been talking about this kind of thing for decades? Let me know in the comment section what you all think. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice, smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers. Make sure you subscribe to the backup channels, and I will catch you all on the next video. All right.